I used to believe marriage was a fortress, something solid, indestructible, built on trust and years of shared experiences. My name's Ray, 36 years old, software engineer by trade, introvert by nature. I'm the kind of guy who notices tiny things, changes in tone, subtle glances, energy shifts in a room. But even with all that, I missed the warning signs, or maybe, deep down, I just didn't want to see them. We lived in a quiet suburb of Atlanta. Not rich, not struggling, just comfortably in between. A 2-story brick house with a white fence and a golden retriever named Max. The kind of life that looks good in pictures. The kind of life that fools even the ones living it. My wife, Marissa, was everything I thought I wanted. Sharp, driven, affectionate, at least on the surface. We'd been together for 9 years, married for 6. There was a rhythm to our life. Coffee together in the mornings, texts during the day, dinner with light conversation in the evenings. On paper, it all looked perfect. But lately, that rhythm had started skipping beats. It started with something small. The first time I really noticed was one Tuesday morning. I walked into the kitchen and saw Marissa standing there, fully dressed, hair curled, makeup on, before I'd even poured my coffee. That wasn't like her. She usually worked from home and took her time getting ready. But that day, she said she had an early client meeting. Something in her voice didn't land right. It wasn't what she said, it was how she said it. Like she had rehearsed it. She didn't look me in the eyes when she said it either. Her gaze lingered on the sink. She avoided the usual kiss goodbye, just grabbed her purse and said, "Love you," over her shoulder. Max tilted his head as the door closed behind her, as if even he sensed something off. At first, I told myself I was overthinking it. Everyone has busy days. She's ambitious. Maybe she's just working on a big project. But the unease didn't go away. It lingered like the aftertaste of something bitter. A few days later, I noticed her phone was suddenly always face down. Always. We'd never had that rule between us. In fact, our phones used to sit unlocked on the counter, wide open, because trust wasn't something we questioned. But now, even when she was in the shower, her phone was nowhere in sight. Once, I went to grab her charger. Ours had gone missing, and her phone buzzed in her purse. Just one word flashed on the screen before it went dark again. Soon. No name. Just that word. My stomach tightened. Again, I brushed it off. Maybe it was her mom. Maybe it was a friend planning a birthday surprise. Maybe I was just spiraling because I'd been working overtime and my sleep schedule was trash. That's what I told myself. That's what I needed to believe. But the changes didn't stop. She stopped asking me how my day was. She used to remember the tiniest things, what project I was on, whether I had a presentation, what time I was supposed to log in. Now, it felt like I was living with a stranger who shared my bed, but had already left me in every other way. There was a night, around 11 p.m., when I woke up and saw she wasn't in bed. I got up, still groggy, and found her downstairs in the kitchen. She jumped when I walked in. The fridge was open, but she wasn't holding anything. Just standing there, staring at nothing. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah, just couldn't sleep," she said, shutting the fridge quickly. We both stood there in that cold, humming silence, and for a second, I felt like she was going to cry. But she didn't. She just turned and went back upstairs, leaving me alone under the harsh fluorescent light. I stayed up that night. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just walked in on something, not physically, but emotionally. Like I had interrupted a moment that wasn't meant for me. Then came the dreams, mine, not hers. Dreams of being followed. Of turning around and seeing no one, but feeling watched. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, heart pounding, the other side of the bed cold. And each time, I'd roll over to find her looking at her phone, the screen lighting up her face like some kind of ghostly secret. But still, I said nothing. Maybe I didn't want to know. Maybe I thought confronting it would make it real. Then one night, as we sat watching a movie, some thriller she barely paid attention to, I looked over and saw her smiling. Not at the screen. At her phone. A smile I hadn't seen directed at me in months. Soft. Private. Intimate. I stared at her for a long moment. She didn't notice. I opened my mouth to say something. Then I closed it. The words wouldn't come. What was I supposed to say? Who are you texting with a smile like that at midnight? Instead, I stood up, walked into the kitchen, and stood there under the same fridge light, just like she had before. The hum of the appliance sounded like a warning now. There's something incredibly lonely about feeling like a stranger in your own house. About living with someone whose heart is no longer yours, even though their body still comes home to you every night. That night, I couldn't sleep. I laid in bed pretending to, while her breathing next to me stayed unnaturally even, like she was pretending to. The next morning, she was gone before I woke up. No note. No kiss. No coffee cup left on the counter like she used to do. That day, something in me shifted. I didn't know what yet, but I knew something was wrong. Deeply, terribly wrong. And I was done pretending not to feel it. It's funny how suspicion doesn't come crashing in like a wave. It creeps in, slow, silent, seeping into the corners of your life like a leak behind the walls. You don't notice the damage at first, but it's there, rotting, expanding. And by the time you realize how bad it is, you're standing in the ruins of what you thought was home. The morning after she left without saying goodbye, I sat at the kitchen table staring into a mug of lukewarm coffee. I hadn't touched it. My appetite had vanished. I tried to focus on work, lines of code, endless error messages, but everything blurred. My brain refused to lock in. All it wanted was answers. Marissa's patterns were shifting fast. Before, she used to check in during the day, small things like, "How's work going?" or "Should I pick up something for dinner?" But now, hours would pass in silence. And when I messaged her, the replies came slow and stale. Busy. In a meeting. Talk later. Even her typing bubbles would appear, then disappear. No follow-up. No warmth. Just space. I started keeping track. Not like a jealous maniac, but like someone trying to stay sane. I noticed how every Tuesday and Thursday, she left the house unusually early. Said it was for strategy calls at her client's office. But when I asked for more details, like which client, she'd get vague. Shrug. Change the subject. One Thursday, curiosity got the better of me. I decided to follow her. I know how that sounds. Creepy. Paranoid. But when trust begins to crumble, logic follows close behind. I waited 10 minutes after she left, then slipped into my car and trailed her down the highway. My hands were sweating on the steering wheel. My heart thudded like I was breaking some sacred law. She exited toward downtown. Nothing suspicious yet. Maybe she really did have a meeting. But then she turned off on a quiet residential street. Slowed down. Pulled into the driveway of a small brick house I'd never seen before. No office signs. No company logos. Just a plain house with a black SUV parked out front. I parked a few houses down, kept my head low. She got out of the car, checked her phone, and walked up to the door. It opened before she even knocked. A man stood there, tall, well-built, early 40s maybe. He smiled. She smiled back. Then they hugged. Not a friendly hug. A long, familiar one. Something inside me sank. I didn't know what hurt more, the hug or the fact that she had never hugged me like that in months. She disappeared inside, and the door closed behind her. I sat there for 10 minutes, numb. My world, my marriage, everything I thought I understood, it had all just tilted sideways. There was no denying it now. This wasn't work. This wasn't business. This was betrayal. I didn't confront her that night. I didn't know how. I kept playing it over and over again in my head. What would I say? What proof did I have other than what my own eyes had seen? Would she lie? Would she cry? Would she confess? I needed more. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her phone the next time she left it unattended. It was a Saturday, and she was in the shower. The phone buzzed twice on the nightstand. I unlocked it. Same passcode as always. I guess she didn't think I'd ever use it. There it was. A string of texts from a contact named A. Can't stop thinking about you. Tuesday can't come fast enough. I love you. And then from her. I wish I could stay in your arms forever. I hate going home after seeing you.
Soon.
I promise. My hands shook. I took screenshots, emailed them to myself. Then I put the phone back exactly where it was and walked out of the room, heart pounding, nausea rising. When she got out of the shower, I was sitting on the edge of the bed, silent. She didn't notice. She was humming. That's what hit me. She was humming.
Happy.
As if the world hadn't just shattered in front of me. As if I wasn't sitting there, quietly dying inside. The next few days were a blur. I started looking at everything differently. Every word she said felt fake. Every laugh was hollow. Every "I love you" that escaped her lips tasted like poison. And she seemed lighter, freer, like something had lifted off her shoulders. She started going out more, with friends, started coming home later, showering before bed instead of in the mornings. I was watching my marriage die in slow motion, and she had no idea. I already knew. I considered confronting her. I wrote out a dozen versions of what I'd say, but none of them felt right. None of them gave me back what she had taken. My peace, my dignity, my sense of reality. Instead, I began preparing. If she wanted to play this game, I'd make sure I didn't walk away the loser. I started researching divorce attorneys, quietly pulled our financial records, looked into who owned what, the house, the savings, the investments. I wasn't going to let her blindside me and walk away with half after destroying everything we built. Max, our dog, seemed to know something was off. He stuck closer to me than usual. He wouldn't sleep in our bed anymore. He curled up at the foot of the guest room where I had quietly moved some of my things. One night, I sat on the back patio with a glass of scotch in hand, staring at the stars, wondering how the hell I got here. I thought about the vows we made, for better or worse, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. But apparently, none of that applied when temptation came knocking with a better smile, a newer scent, and fresher lies. Still, I waited, because I wasn't going to just react.
No.
I was going to choose the perfect time to strike. And she wouldn't see it coming. There comes a moment when silence becomes a weapon. You wield it, not because you're afraid, but because you're waiting. Timing is everything. And I wasn't about to throw away my advantage. It was a Wednesday evening when the opportunity finally presented itself. She had just returned home, perfume still lingering, cheeks flushed in a way that had nothing to do with the cool spring air. Her heels clicked across the hardwood floor like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't just spent 2 hours wrapped in another man's arms. "Hey," she said casually, dropping her bag by the door. "Dinner?" I looked up from the dining table, my laptop open but forgotten. I nodded slowly.
Sure.
"Let's eat." She busied herself in the kitchen, humming again. God, that humming. She didn't notice how still I was. How quiet. How every breath I took was measured, paced like a fuse slowly burning down. She plated pasta. Her favorite. Not mine. She never asked what I wanted anymore. We sat across from each other at the table. She scrolled her phone between bites. Then I said it. "I know." She froze. Her fork stopped midair.
What?
I leaned forward, voice low and steady. "I know about him. About the house on Coral Street. About the Tuesday mornings, the lies, the messages. I know everything." Her face drained of color. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Tried again. It's not what you think." I laughed. It was bitter and broken. "Don't insult me. You can lie to yourself. You can lie to him. But you won't lie to me. Not anymore." Tears welled in her eyes. It surprised me. I didn't expect tears so quickly. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered. "That's what they always say, right? As if love is some kind of accident. Like you just slip and fall into someone's bed." "How long?" I asked. She wiped her cheek. 6 months. 6 months. I stared at her, letting the weight of that number crush the silence between us. Half a year. 26 weeks of deceit. Of pretending. Of letting me hold her at night while she dreamed of someone else. "Why?" I asked. She looked away. "I don't know. I was lonely. We were distant. You were always working. I slammed my palm on the table, rattling the plates. I was working for us. To give us a future. A house. A life. Not to be replaced by some sleazy affair on the side. Her shoulders shook, but the anger in me had burned past sympathy. Do you love him? I demanded. Silence. Then a nod. That was it. The moment something inside me broke for good. All the hope, all the years, all the promises, snapped like a branch underfoot. I stood up slowly.
Calm.
Controlled. I want a divorce. She gasped, stood up too. Wait, please. Can we talk about this? Can we go to therapy or something? I made a mistake.
No, I said.
You made a choice. Every week. Every lie. Every time you crawled back into our bed pretending you were still mine. She started crying harder, reaching for me, but I stepped back. It's too late, I said coldly. You killed what we had. You don't get to mourn it now. I turned and walked into the living room, pulled a folder from the drawer, something I'd been preparing for weeks. I handed it to her. What's this? She asked, sniffling. Divorce papers. Drafted.
Fair.
You can have the car. I'll keep the house. We split the accounts. Max stays with me. She opened her mouth to protest, but I cut her off. Don't argue. You left this marriage long before I did. Be grateful I'm not taking more. She stared at the papers like they were poison. Is there really no chance? I looked her dead in the eyes. Would you forgive me if it were the other way around? She didn't answer.
Exactly.
I walked upstairs, each step heavier than the last. I shut the bedroom door behind me, leaned against it, and let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for months. The dam had burst. The truth was out. And for the first time in forever, I felt something close to peace. That night, she slept on the couch. I didn't sleep at all. The next morning, I came downstairs and found her sitting there, bleary-eyed, clutching a mug of untouched coffee, just like I had weeks ago. Funny how the roles had reversed. I signed them, she said quietly. I'll move out by the end of the week. I nodded. No sympathy. No comfort. Just acknowledgement. It was done. She packed in silence. Box after box. Memories sealed in cardboard. Photos.
Clothes.
Pieces of a life that no longer belonged to us. Max sat beside me, watching her, ears low. He knew too. The last thing she packed was her wedding ring. She left it on the kitchen counter on a little white napkin. Then she was gone. No goodbyes. Just the click of the door. And suddenly, silence. Real silence. The kind that doesn't hide anything. I sat down on the couch, let the quiet wrap around me. It didn't feel peaceful. Not yet. But it felt honest. And that was something. I picked up the ring, stared at it, then placed it back down, and walked away. I wasn't broken anymore. I was free. The days after she left were quieter than I ever imagined. Not peaceful quiet. Not yet. It was the kind of silence that lingered in the air like smoke after a fire. Acrid, heavy, hard to breathe. Every corner of the house still held her scent. Every room echoed with memories I didn't ask to remember. I found myself waking up early, not because I was rested, but because the silence was too loud to sleep through. I'd get out of bed, make coffee, pour 2 cups out of habit, then throw one away. A small ritual of grief. Max followed me everywhere. Dogs know things we don't say aloud. He didn't bark. He didn't whimper. He just laid by my feet, guarding the broken pieces of what used to be my life. For the first few days, I avoided the bedroom. I couldn't look at the half-empty closet or the untouched side of the bed. I slept on the couch, the same couch she cried on the night I told her it was over. I stared at the ceiling, asking the same question over and over. How did we get here? Grief is strange. It's not just sadness. It's rage. It's relief. It's confusion wrapped in pain. One minute, I missed her so badly, I could barely breathe. The next, I hated her for making me feel that way. The worst part? I missed us. The version of us before the cracks. Before the betrayal. But missing a ghost doesn't bring it back. On the 4th day, I opened the closet and took out the box I had hidden in the top shelf, our wedding album. I sat on the floor with Max beside me and flipped through it page by page. She looked beautiful.
So did I.
We looked happy.
Real.
But now I knew. Photographs lie. They freeze a moment, not the truth. Still, I didn't burn it. I didn't tear the pages. I closed it gently, put it back, and whispered, "Goodbye." That night, I slept in the bed again, alone. And for the first time, I didn't cry. The following week, I started clearing things out. Her things. The sweaters she left behind. The books she never finished. The half-used bottle of perfume on the bathroom counter. I put it all in boxes, not to erase her, but to reclaim my space. To reclaim myself. Each item I touched reminded me of something. Some were good. Most hurt. But still, I kept going. I painted the walls. Changed the sheets. Bought new dinnerware, just one set. I wasn't rushing healing. I was just creating space for it. Friends started checking in. "Are you okay?" they'd ask gently. And I'd always pause before answering because okay felt like a lie, but broken didn't feel right either. So I'd say, "I'm getting there." And it was the truth. I started going on walks again. Long ones with Max by my side. I'd breathe in the fresh air and remind myself that the world hadn't ended, even though mine had shifted. Sometimes I'd pass couples laughing, holding hands, and a bitter part of me would tighten. But then I'd look at the trees, the sky, the rhythm of the world still turning. And I'd remember, this is just a chapter, not the end of the book. One Sunday morning, I found myself at the park bench where she and I used to sit. We'd share coffee there, talk about the future. I sat there alone, staring at nothing and everything. And then, as if summoned by fate, a little girl ran past me chasing a kite, her father just behind her. They laughed together. Pure, untouched joy. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Not a forced smile. A real one. And I realized healing doesn't come all at once. It comes in fragments. In Sunday mornings. In laughter you didn't expect. In letting go. 2 weeks later, her name came up on my phone. I stared at it. Froze. Then let it ring. No voicemail. A part of me wanted to call back. But I didn't. She had made her choice. And I had made mine. The next morning, I opened the windows and let the sunlight in. I cleaned the whole house, played music, danced in the kitchen like a fool. Max wagged his tail. Life felt different. Not better. Not worse. Just new. And new was enough. Grief didn't vanish. It still came in waves. A song. A smell. A dream that made me wake up reaching for someone who wasn't there. But each time, the waves were smaller. Each time, I found myself a little stronger. I started journaling, writing not just about the pain, but about what I was learning. I wrote, "Healing isn't forgetting. It's remembering without breaking. Love isn't always enough, but self-respect should be. Some endings are actually beginnings dressed in disguise." One afternoon, I ran into her at the grocery store. She looked thinner, paler, sadder. We locked eyes. She gave a small nod. I nodded back. No words exchanged. Just understanding. There was no fire. No hatred. Just two people who once loved each other. And lost their way. As I walked away, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel pain. I felt free. That night, I looked in the mirror. Really looked. And for the first time in a long time, I saw someone I recognized. Someone whole. Not because I had forgotten her. Not because I had patched over the pain. But because I had chosen myself. I poured a glass of wine, stepped out onto the porch, and watched the sunset bleed across the sky in golds and purples. A breeze brushed past me, soft and warm. I breathed it in, and whispered to the night. I survived. It began slowly. The kind of shift you don't notice at first, like the sun rising behind thick clouds. You don't realize how much light is returning until suddenly, it's everywhere. That's what healing felt like. One morning, I woke up and didn't feel the weight on my chest. No anxiety. No pain. Just breath. Just space. That same day, I put on a shirt I hadn't worn in months, one she used to like. I looked at myself in the mirror and didn't think of her. I just thought, damn, this actually suits me. That was the moment I knew. I was changing. But the real turning point wasn't found in peace or silence. It came through confrontation. 2 months after she left, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Just her name scrawled in that handwriting I knew too well. My hands trembled as I opened it. The letter was short, barely a page. She didn't apologize. Not really.
She just said she thought about me.
That sometimes, at night, she still reached for me out of habit. That she missed Max. And that maybe one day we could talk. For a while, I sat frozen. Then I stood up, walked to the backyard, and read it again under the open sky. She still hadn't said the words I needed.
Still hadn't owned what she did.
And that was the moment something shifted deep inside me. Not in anger, not in pain, but in clarity. I wasn't waiting for closure anymore. I was the closure. That night, I wrote my own letter. I didn't send it. I just wrote it for me. You hurt me. But I let it happen longer than I should have. That's on me. I loved you, but I abandoned myself in the process. I'm reclaiming what I lost now, my voice, my worth, my freedom. I hope you heal. I hope you learn. But I'm not waiting anymore. This is goodbye, not just to you, but to the version of me that needed you to feel whole. When I finished, I folded the paper and burned it in the fire pit. The flames danced, golden and wild. It felt like a funeral, but also like a rebirth. The following weeks were a season of awakening. I started saying yes to things I'd been avoiding. Dinners with friends. Invitations to events. Solo hikes into the hills. Nights under the stars, whispering prayers of gratitude for simply surviving. And then something unexpected happened. I met someone. Not romantically, not yet. Just a stranger at a bookstore who noticed the book in my hand and said, "That one changed my life." We talked for 20 minutes about healing, heartbreak, poetry. It wasn't about falling in love. It was about remembering that connection still existed. That I was still capable of laughter, of sharing, of being seen. I went home that night and smiled at myself in the mirror again. Not because of him, but because I saw me. The real me. Emerging. The next turning point came on a rainy Tuesday. I was walking Max when I got caught in a sudden downpour. Normally, I'd run for cover. But that day, something stopped me. Instead of running, I stood still. Let the rain soak through my clothes. Let it baptize me. Max shook beside me, confused, but I laughed. I laughed so loud. A woman walking past smiled at me like I was crazy. And maybe I was. But it felt good. Liberating. As if the sky itself was washing away all the months of sorrow, guilt, regret. By the time I got home, I was drenched. But I felt alive. It wasn't just a metaphor. It was a transformation. I started journaling again with intention. Not just the pain, but the growth. Each entry became a mirror, a ladder, a light. Here's what I wrote one night. We wait for apologies to heal. But what if healing doesn't come from them? What if healing is choosing to rise, even when no one says sorry? What if the turning point isn't what they say, but what you decide to no longer carry? That realization hit like thunder. I had spent so long hoping she'd acknowledge the hurt, that she'd call and make it right. But now I didn't need it. Her silence wasn't my prison anymore. I was walking out of the cell and locking the door behind me. Soon people started noticing. "You seem lighter," they'd say. More peaceful. Even my mother, who had seen me at my worst, called and said, "I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it." I told her the truth. I chose to stop waiting for the storm to pass, and I learned how to dance in the rain instead. One evening, I was sitting on the porch, Max at my feet, watching the sky blush into twilight, when I realized something beautiful. I didn't miss her anymore. Not the real her. I missed the idea of her. The dream I built that she couldn't live up to. And when I let go of that illusion, something sacred happened. I reclaimed my power. Not just as someone who had been hurt, but as someone who had healed. There was no grand moment. No trumpet of triumph. Just a deep, steady peace that lived in my bones now. And that, more than anything, was the turning point I never saw coming. Healing hadn't changed the past. It had changed me, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. If you've made it this far, then maybe this story wasn't just mine. Maybe, in some way, it was yours too. Maybe you've sat on the edge of your bed at 2 a.m., wondering why the people you love can't love you the way you deserve. Maybe you've held the broken pieces of your heart and tried to fit them back together with nothing but willpower and prayers. Maybe you've searched for signs in the sky, begged the universe for answers, asked God if he was still listening. And maybe, just maybe, you've walked through your own fire. So listen closely, because this part is for you. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when silence becomes a sanctuary, when the noise of the world, the pain, the memories, the shame, it all begins to dissolve into something sacred. That moment doesn't always come with trumpets or epiphanies. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it just arrives. And when it does, you realize something most people go their whole lives never fully understanding. You were never broken. You were becoming. Everything that shattered you was also shaping you. The betrayal? It taught you boundaries. The abandonment? It revealed your resilience. The heartbreak? It opened you to the depth of your own capacity to feel. And that's not weakness. That's strength most people don't dare touch. I know it's tempting to wish it never happened. To wish you could go back in time and change it all, avoid the pain, dodge the lies, erase the moment everything fell apart. But if you did that, you'd erase who you've become too. And you, this version of you, the one standing in the ashes holding her own flame, you are the one who deserves to rise. You are the one who deserves the life your past self dreamed about. But here's the catch. You can't rise if you keep clinging to the rubble. You can't fly if you're still tied to the cage door hoping they'll come back and unlock it. Unlock it yourself. Walk through it. Close it behind you. And never look back. Let this be the message that finds you when you need it most. You are not here to suffer through another cycle of false promises and empty apologies. You are not here to shrink so others feel comfortable. You are not here to be chosen like a prize. You are the prize. You are here to remember your power, to return to your truth, to become the version of yourself that no longer waits for permission to be free. And if no one ever told you before, let me tell you now. You are enough. You are worthy. You are not too much. You are not too sensitive. You are not broken. You are a mosaic, made from all the pieces that refuse to die inside you. Sometimes life has to break your heart to open your soul. Sometimes the greatest loss leads to the deepest return. You thought they walked away from you, but maybe the universe was removing what couldn't stay in your next chapter. Not as punishment, as preparation. For something greater, for someone who sees you, for a future that doesn't require you to beg or bargain for love. Now, I want you to pause and breathe. Close your eyes, place your hand on your heart, and say this out loud. I release what no longer serves me. I forgive myself for not knowing better before. I am reclaiming my light. I am choosing peace. I am open to joy, to love, to miracles. I am ready for what's next. Say it again. Mean it this time. Let your body believe what your mind doubts. Because when you say it enough times, something shifts. Not outside you, but within you. And that inner shift, that's the beginning of a brand new timeline. You don't need to chase anything anymore. The love you seek is seeking you. The life you crave is already forming around you. But it can only meet you at the frequency you hold. So stop lowering it to match people who weren't meant to stay.
Rise.
Rise even if your legs are shaking. Rise even if your past whispers that you're not ready. Because you are. You were born ready. The fire you walked through wasn't to burn you. It was to reforge you.
And now?
Now you carry that fire in your eyes. Now you speak with the voice of a soul that has survived. Now you walk like someone who's no longer asking for love, but embodying it.
Not because of them.
Because of you. Because you chose to heal. Because you chose to stay with yourself. Because you learned that closure doesn't come from others. It comes from choosing yourself every damn day. And the universe? It's been waiting for you to remember who you are, to stop watering dead plants, to stop knocking on locked doors,
To rise.
so this is your message, the one you were meant to hear, exactly when you needed it. You don't have to be perfect to be powerful. You just have to be honest. Honest about what hurts. Honest about what you need. Honest about who you are when no one's looking. That's the beginning. That's the magic. That's the place where healing turns into transformation. And from here, you don't just move on. You move forward. With purpose. With power. With peace.
This is your time.
The fire didn't destroy you. It rebirthed you. Now go, and rise like the storm that was never meant to be tamed.